The Texas desert doesn't hide its threats. No thick forests, no dense swamps, just open land, brutal sun, and nowhere to run when something starts hunting you. That's what makes it terrifying. You can see for miles. And so can the things that want you dead. My name is Staff Sergeant Marcus Rivera, 29 years old, United States Marine Corps, Force Reconnaissance, Mexican-American. Born in El Paso. Raised on stories my abuela told about things that lived in the desert. Things that hunted at night. Things called Chupacabra. I never believed those stories. Thought they were just folklore. Tales to scare children into staying close to home after dark. But in September 2021, in the desert near Big Bend, Texas, I learned that some folklore exists for a reason, and that 12 Marines with the best training in the world couldn't stop something that's been hunting this desert for generations. The mission briefing was straightforward. Border Patrol training. The Marine Corps was developing protocols for desert operations, counter-narcotics, human trafficking interdiction, cartel surveillance. 12 of us were selected for a 7-day exercise in South Texas. Navigate the border region. Conduct reconnaissance, practice desert survival, standard stuff for force recon. The team was experienced. Gunnery Sergeant James Taylor leading, 34 years old, 4 combat deployments, the kind of Marine who'd been in worse situations and always found a way out. Sergeant David Chen, our comms specialist. Corporals Martinez, Johnson, Williams, and Davis, Lance Corporals Peterson, Anderson, Miller, Washington, and me, all force recon, all desert trained, all confident we could handle whatever South Texas threw at us. We deployed from Fort Bliss on September 10th. Drove 6 hours south to a small ranching community near the border, middle of nowhere. Population maybe 300. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and outsiders are noticed immediately. Our liaison was a local rancher, Hector Gutierrez, maybe 65, third-generation Texan. His family had worked this land since before Texas was even a state. Weathered face, hands like leather, eyes that had seen things he didn't talk about to people who wouldn't believe. "You boys doing maneuvers out here?" he asked, as we unloaded gear at his ranch. "In September? Heat's still brutal. 100+ during the day, not much cooler at night." "We've trained in worse," Taylor said. "Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, we know desert." "Maybe you know desert," Gutierrez said carefully. "But you know this desert, Texas border desert. Desert is desert, sir. Heat, sun, minimal water. We're prepared." Gutierrez looked at us for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but I gotta tell you something, and I need you to listen. Really listen. Not just humor the old rancher." "We're listening," I said in Spanish, showing respect, acknowledging his authority on his own land. He switched to Spanish, spoke to me directly. "El Chupacabra es real. It lives in this desert. Has lived here longer than my family, longer than anyone remembers. It hunts at night, kills livestock, sometimes kills people. You go out there, into the deep desert, you need to understand. You're entering their territory, and they don't like trespassers." "Chupacabra," Martinez repeated, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "The goat sucker, come on." "You think it's a joke?" Gutierrez switched back to English. "You think I'm some superstitious old Mexican telling scary stories? My grandfather lost 3 workers to them in 1947. My father lost a cousin in 1971. I've lost 12 cattle this year alone. Not to coyotes, not to disease, to them. And I've seen them twice, once when I was young, once last month. They're real, And if you're smart, you'll stay close to the ranch. Don't go deep, don't camp in the arroyos, and for God's sake, don't be out there after dark." "What do they look like?" Chen asked, now taking notes. "If we need to identify potential threats, not like the stories," Gutierrez said. "Not some hairless dog. That's disinformation. Government covering up what's really out there. The real Chupacabra, they're about 5, maybe 6 feet tall. Walk on 2 legs sometimes. 4 legs when they run. Got skin like reptile mixed with mammal. Gray-green. Spines along the back. Eyes that glow red at night. Claws designed for gripping prey. And fangs. Long fangs that puncture veins. They drain blood. That's how they feed. That's why we call them Chupacabra." "And they hunt in packs?" I asked, my abuela's story suddenly feeling less like folklore. "Sí, manadas, usually 8 to 10. Coordinated. Like wolves, but smarter. They communicate, use the terrain, drive prey into ambush points. And they're fast. Faster than you'd think something that size should move. You run, they catch you. You fight, they surround you. You hide, they wait you out." Taylor nodded politely. "We appreciate the warning, Mr. Gutierrez. We'll be careful. But we have mission parameters. We'll be operating in the desert for 7 days. We'll maintain proper security protocols. We'll be fine." Gutierrez looked at him, then at all of us, and I saw something in his eyes. Not anger at being dismissed. Sadness, like he was looking at dead men who just didn't know it yet. "Vayan con Dios," he said quietly. "Because once you're out there, God's the only one who can help you." We deployed the next morning, loaded up with 7 days of supplies, water, MRES, ammunition, medical gear, everything we needed for extended desert operations. The plan was to patrol 40 clicks of border region, establish observation posts, document terrain features, and practice desert navigation. The heat hit like a physical force the moment we started moving. Even at 0600, it was already 90 degrees. By noon, it would be over 100, and we'd be hiking through terrain with minimal shade, carrying 80-pound packs in full combat gear. "Stay hydrated," Taylor ordered. "Drink before you're thirsty. We lose anyone to heat casualty, the whole exercise gets scrubbed." We moved in tactical column, Taylor on point, Chen second with comms. The rest of us staggered in formation. Every few clicks we'd stop. Check map. Confirm position. Look for threats. Standard patrol protocols. The desert was different from what we'd trained in. The Middle East had sand dunes. Kuwait had flat plains. Texas had arroyos, dry riverbeds cutting through rocky terrain, had mesquite and cactus, had endless visibility that made you feel exposed, vulnerable. Like anything, watching you had all the advantage. By 1400, we'd covered maybe 12 clicks, a third of our daily target. But the heat was affecting everyone. Johnson was showing early signs of heat exhaustion. Williams had blisters. Even Taylor was slowing down. We set camp, he decided, here, in this arroyo. Get some shade. Wait out the worst heat. Move again at 1800 when it cools. We established a perimeter in the arroyo, set up camouflage netting for shade, posted security, tried to rest. But sleeping in 100-degree heat isn't really sleeping. It's just enduring until the sun goes down and you can function again. Around 1900, as the sun was setting, Chen noticed something. "Sarge, look at that." We all looked. On the desert floor, maybe 200 meters out, were dead cattle. 4 of them. Recent kills. We could tell from the buzzards that were only just starting to circle. "Gutierrez's cattle," Martinez suggested. "We're 20 clicks from his ranch," Taylor said. "And those animals didn't walk here. They were killed here. We approached carefully, weapons ready, scanning for threats. And what we found made no sense. The cattle were completely drained of blood, precise puncture wounds in the throat, no tearing, no signs of scavenger feeding, just empty, like something had drunk them dry. "What the hell does that?" Peterson asked. "Chupacabra," I said quietly. "That's exactly what Gutierrez described. Blood draining, clean kills, no mess." "Don't start," Taylor warned. "These are coyote kills, or maybe poachers, some kind of weird slaughter technique, but not cryptids. Sarge, coyotes don't drain blood, they tear and eat. This is something else, which we'll document and report. Now set security, full alert. Whatever killed these cattle might still be in the area." We established night security, 3-hour rotations, 2 Marines awake at all times, NVGs on, weapons ready. But the night was quiet. Too quiet. No coyotes, no insects, just silence and heat that barely dropped even after sunset. I had the 0300 watch with Chen. We were scanning the desert with night vision when Chen grabbed my arm. "Movement, 10 o'clock, multiple contacts." I looked. Through the green phosphor of the NVGs, I could see them. Shapes, moving between rocks, low to the ground. Fast, at least 8 distinct contacts, heading toward our position. "Wake, everyone," I whispered. "We've got company." The team came alert instantly. 12 Marines, weapons trained on the approaching contacts, waiting for visual identification, waiting to see what was hunting us. They came into view maybe 50 meters out, and they weren't coyotes, weren't wolves, weren't anything natural. 5 feet tall when standing upright, bipedal but capable of dropping to all fours, skin that looked reptilian in texture but covered with sparse hair, spines running along the back, long arms with clawed hands, legs bent wrong, digitigrade like a dog, and the head, Jesus Christ, the head, elongated snout, pointed ears, and eyes that reflected our NVG illumination back as red pinpoints. "Contact," Taylor called. "Unknown hostiles, weapons free." We opened fire, 12 rifles, controlled bursts, but they were fast, so impossibly fast. They scattered, some went left, some right, some straight at us, moving in patterns that showed coordination, organization, strategy. I tracked one, fired, saw impacts on its torso, but it didn't go down, just veered off, disappeared into the rocks, like it was more annoyed than injured. "They're not staying down," Martinez shouted. "I hit 3, they just keep moving." "Grenades," Taylor pulled one. "Frag out." The explosion lit up the night. Caught 2 of them in the kill radius, they went down. Stayed down, but the others, there were still at least 6, they pulled back, retreated into the desert, and we heard sounds, vocalizations. Not howls, not growls, something else. Almost like speech. Like they were communicating, coordinating their next move. "Sound off," Taylor ordered. "Anyone hit?" We all reported in, 12 voices. 12 Marines still alive. But we'd just been attacked by something that shouldn't exist. By creatures that moved with military precision. By Chupacabra that were very, very real. "What the hell were those?" Johnson demanded. "Chupacabra," I said. "Gutierrez tried to warn us. We didn't listen. Those were animals, aggressive animals. Maybe rabid, but not. Animals don't coordinate attacks, don't communicate, don't show tactical awareness. You saw them. They're intelligent, they're organized, and they're hunting us." Taylor checked his ammo. "Whatever they are, we hurt them. Killed at least 2. The others retreated. We established dominance, they won't try again." But even as he said it, I didn't believe him, and I could tell he didn't either. because we'd seen something in those red eyes. Not fear, not confusion. Calculation. They were learning, adapting, figuring out what we could do, what we were capable of, and they'd be back, with better tactics, better strategy, better coordination. We'd just entered their territory and they were deciding what to do about that. The sun came up an hour later. We searched for the bodies of the two we'd killed. Found nothing. No blood trail. No remains. The pack had taken them, removed the evidence, like they understood we might use the bodies to prove they existed. "We call for extraction," Chen suggested. "Report contact with unknown hostiles. Get backup." "And tell them what?" Taylor asked. "That we were attacked by cryptids? That Chupacabra are real? They'll think we're crazy, or lying, or both. So what do we do?" Taylor looked at the desert, at the arroyos and rocks where those things were hiding, at the endless terrain that gave them every advantage. And I saw him make a decision. The wrong decision. The decision that would cost 8 Marines their lives. We continue the mission. We stay alert. We stay armed. And if they attack again, we kill them all. We're Marines. We don't run from contact. We don't abort missions because of aggressive wildlife. We adapt. We overcome. We win. It sounded good. Sounded like leadership. Sounded like the Corps. But 12 Marines were about to learn that some fights you can't win. Some enemies are adapted to terrain you can't match. And some creatures have been hunting this desert longer than America has existed. The Chupacabra weren't done with us. They'd pulled back, regrouped, and were preparing for round 2, a round where they'd use everything they'd learned about us, everything they'd observed, everything that would give them the advantage. We had 6 days left in the desert. 8 Marines wouldn't survive to extraction, and the 4 who did would spend the rest of their lives knowing we'd been warned. We'd been given the truth, and we'd dismissed it as superstition. The desert was quiet as we packed up and prepared to move, but that silence wasn't peaceful. It was predatory. The silence of something watching, waiting, planning. And somewhere in those rocks, those arroyos, that endless Texas desert, the Chupacabra pack was preparing for the hunt. We moved during daylight. That was the plan. Stay mobile during the day when we had visibility advantage. Set defensive positions at night when they had the advantage. Simple, tactical. The kind of strategy that works against conventional threats. But the Chupacabra weren't conventional, and the Texas desert wasn't giving us any breaks. By 1000, the temperature was already 105 degrees. We were going through water faster than planned. Johnson was struggling, last night's heat exhaustion catching up with him. William's blisters had gotten worse. Even the experienced Marines were feeling it. Desert heat doesn't care about your training. It just drains you. Slowly. Relentlessly. "We need to find shade," Chen said, checking his GPS. "There's a rock formation 5 clicks northeast. Should provide cover. We can wait out the worst heat there." "Agreed," Taylor said. "But we move carefully. Stay alert. Those things are still out there." We found tracks as we moved. Not cattle. Not coyotes. Chupacabra tracks. 3-toed prints. Clawed. Both bipedal and quadrupedal patterns. Following our route. Paralleling us. Staying maybe 200 meters out. Just far enough that we couldn't see them, but close enough that we knew they were there. "They're tracking us," Martinez said. "Following our movements." "Let them," Taylor replied. "Daylight gives us the advantage. If they attack now, we see them coming. We drop them before they get close. But they didn't attack. They just followed. Patient, learning our patterns, our pace, our limitations. And I realized something that made my blood cold. They were waiting for us to get weaker, waiting for the desert to do their work for them, then they'd strike. We reached the rock formation at 1300, found shade in an overhang, set security, tried to rest. But it was hard to relax knowing they were out there, watching, waiting. "Sarge," Peterson called from his security position. "We've got movement. Multiple contacts, they're circling us." We all moved to defensive positions, weapons ready, scanning the rocks. And we saw them, at least 8, maybe 10, moving through the terrain like they owned it, which, honestly, they did. This was their desert, their hunting ground. We were just food that happened to be armed. One of them, larger than the others, probably the alpha, stepped into view. Maybe 80 meters out, just stood there, staring at us, those red eyes fixed on our position, calculating. Then it made a sound, deep, resonant, almost like words, and the others responded, all around us, surrounding our position in a perfect perimeter. "They're communicating," I said, "coordinating. That's language. That's animals making noise," Taylor interrupted. But I could hear the doubt in his voice, could see it in how tight he was gripping his rifle. The alpha made another vocalization, and as one, they all moved, scattered, disappeared into the rocks, like they'd received orders, like they were executing a plan. "Where'd they go?" Johnson asked. "They just vanished." "They didn't vanish," I said. "They're repositioning, getting ready for something." "For what?" "I don't know, but we need to move, now. This position is compromised." Taylor considered it. "We wait until 1600, when it's cooler. Then we move to—" The scream cut him off. Human scream, from our perimeter, from where Anderson had been on security. "Anderson!" Taylor was moving. We all were, running toward his position, weapons up. But we were too late. Anderson was gone, just gone. His rifle was there, his pack, his boots. But no Anderson, just drag marks in the sand, leading into a narrow crevice in the rocks, a space too small for a man in full gear to follow. "Anderson, report!" Taylor was shouting into the radio. "Anderson, if you can hear me, key your mic." Static, then something else, a sound, wet, tearing, and then Anderson's radio went dead. "They took him," Peterson said, his voice shaking. "They took him right from under us. How did we not see? Because they're ambush predators," I sighed. "They used the rocks, the terrain. One of them grabbed him, dragged him into that crevice, and the others covered. We never had a chance to react." "We go after him," Martinez started forward. We can't fit in that space," Taylor said grimly. "Not in full gear, and even if we could, we'd be going into their kill zone, into terrain they control. That's suicide. So we leave him? We just abandon? He's dead. Look at the blood trail. Look at how much there is. He's gone, and if we go after him, we die too. That's what they want. That's the trap." We stood there. 11 Marines. One man down in the first 5 minutes. Taken in broad daylight. Right out from under us. And we couldn't even recover his body. "We move," Taylor ordered. "Now. Different route, unpredictable path. We don't let them set up another ambush." We moved fast. Tactical spacing abandoned in favor of staying together. Staying visible to each other. Making sure nobody else got separated. Got taken. But the heat was brutal, and moving fast in 105-degree weather while carrying full combat loads, we were draining our water reserves, draining our energy, playing right into their strategy. By 1700, we'd covered maybe 8 clicks, less than half our daily target, and we were in bad shape. Johnson collapsed. Heat stroke. We had to stop. Set up emergency shade, get IV fluids into him, use precious water to cool him down. "We can't stay here," Chen said, checking his GPS. "We're in the open, exposed. If they attack, they will attack. I said. Tonight, once it's dark, they know we're weakened. They know we can't move fast. They're going to hit us, hard. Then we dig in, Taylor decided. Set up a defensive perimeter, overlapping fields of fire, kill zones. We make this ground our fortress, and when they come, we massacre them. We spent the next hour preparing, used rocks to build firing positions, set up trip flares, established clear sectors of fire, created a 360-degree defense that should have stopped any assault, should have given us the advantage, should have kept us alive. But the Chupacabra had been hunting this desert for generations. They knew every trick, every defense, every tactic. The attack came at 2200. Full dark. No moon. Perfect conditions for them. They hit all sides simultaneously. 8 of them, maybe more, coming from every direction at once, moving so fast our NVGs couldn't track them properly. Just green blurs converging on our position. Contact, all sides. Taylor was firing. We all were. Full automatic. Tracers lighting up the night. But they were so fast, so coordinated, they knew exactly where our firing positions were. Exactly where our kill zones were. And they avoided them. Used the terrain. Used their speed. Used tactics that shouldn't have been possible for animals. One of them broke through. Got inside our perimeter. Went straight for Davis. Got him by the throat before he could scream. Dragged him out. Gone in seconds. "Davis is down!" Martinez was yelling. "They're inside the perimeter." Another one came from a different angle. Went for our water supply. Tore open our cache. Punctured every container. 40 liters of water draining into the sand. They weren't just hunting us. They were eliminating our resources, making sure we couldn't survive even if we escaped the immediate attack. "Water's gone," Jen reported. "They destroyed everything." "Fall back," Taylor ordered. "Tight formation. We move to that arroyo, higher ground." We ran. 11 Marines now, 10. Williams went down. Something hit him from behind. We heard his scream cut short, but we couldn't stop, couldn't help. We just ran. Made it to the arroyo. Found a defensible position against a rock wall. Set up again. Counted heads. 9 Marines. We'd lost 3 in 15 minutes, and we had no water. In the Texas desert. In September. With temperatures that would hit 110 tomorrow. "Ammunition count," Taylor ordered, trying to sound calm. Trying to pretend this wasn't a disaster. We were down to maybe 60%. The firefight had burned through a lot of rounds, and we'd killed maybe 2 of them. Maybe. Hard to tell in the chaos, but even if we'd dropped 2, there were still 6 or more out there. Healthy, hydrated, adapted to this environment, while we were dying of thirst and exhaustion. "We need extraction," Peterson said. "Call it in. Get helicopters. Get us out of here." "Chen," Taylor looked at our comms specialist. Chen was working the radio, trying every frequency, but something was wrong. "I'm not getting signal at all. Not even static. It's like something's blocking us." "Equipment failure? All 3 radios? Simultaneously? That's not failure. That's interference. Active jamming. That's impossible. They're animals. They can't jam radio frequencies." "Then explain why we have 0 comms. Explain how 3 different systems all failed at the exact moment we need them." We couldn't explain it. Just like we couldn't explain the tactics, the coordination, the intelligence. These weren't animals, at least not just animals. They were something else. Something that had adapted to hunting humans. Something that understood technology enough to counter it. The night got colder. Desert nights do that. Drop 40 degrees. We huddled together for warmth. took turns on watch, tried to stay alert despite exhaustion and dehydration and fear. Around 0300, I was on watch with Martinez when we heard it. Vocalizations. From multiple directions. That same structured sound. That language we couldn't understand, but whose meaning was clear. They were coordinating, planning the next attack. "They're not going to hit us again tonight," I said. "They're going to wait. Let the heat finish us tomorrow, then pick off whoever's left." "So what do? We move at first light, forget the mission. 40 clicks in one day? In this heat? Without water? That's suicide. Staying here is suicide. At least if we move, we have a chance. Maybe we find water, maybe we find help, maybe we get lucky. And if they follow us, they will follow us. But during the day, we can see them, we can fight. At night, they have all the advantages. So we move during daylight, all day, non-stop, and we pray we reach civilization before nightfall." Taylor agreed with the plan. We moved at dawn, 9 Marines, no water, limited ammunition, 40 kilometers to cover, and a pack of Chupacabra tracking our every step. The heat was immediate, brutal. By 0700 it was already 95 degrees. By 9 it was 105. By noon it would be 112, and we'd be in direct sun. No shade, no water, just endless desert and things that were waiting for us to fall. Miller collapsed at 1000. Heat stroke. We tried to help him, tried to cool him down, but without water, without IV fluids, there was nothing we could do. We left him in the shade of a mesquite tree. Left him to die because carrying him would kill us all. 8 Marines, 30 kilometers to go, and the Chupacabra were getting bolder. We could see them now, following at a distance, waiting, patient. They knew we were dying. They could afford to wait. Peterson collapsed at 1400, dehydration. He was crying, begging for water. We had none. We kept moving. Left him behind. Left him to the desert and the creatures that owned it. 7 Marines, 20 kilometers to go, but some of us weren't going to make it. Johnson could barely walk. Washington was delirious. Even Taylor was stumbling. We were done, finished. The desert had beaten us, and the Chupacabra were just waiting to collect the bodies. That's when we saw the ranch, at 1700. On the horizon, buildings, vehicles, civilization, 15 kilometers away. We might make it. If we could stay conscious, if we could keep moving, if the Chupacabra gave us just a few more hours. But they didn't, because the sun was setting, and night was their time, and they'd been patient long enough. The attack came at 1900, twilight, the worst time for visibility. They came from everywhere at once, the full pack, 10 of them, maybe more, and we were too weak to run, too dehydrated to fight effectively, too exhausted to do anything but die. Johnson went down first, then Washington, then Chen. The creatures moved through us like we were nothing, like we were prey they'd been stalking for days and were finally ready to harvest. "Run!" Taylor was screaming at me, at Martinez, at Peterson, who'd somehow caught up. "Just run! Get to the ranch! Get help!" We ran. 4 Marines, the only ones who could still move, the only ones who had any chance, and behind us we heard the screaming. Our brothers, our team, being torn apart by things that should have been folklore, that should have been myth, that were very, very real. We could see the ranch lights. 10 kilometers. 8, 6. We were going to make it. We were... Martinez went down. Something hit him from behind. We heard him scream, but we couldn't stop. Peterson and Taylor and I just kept running. 4 kilometers. 3, 2. We reached the ranch at 2200. Burst through the gate. Collapsed. And Hector Gutierrez found us. looked at 3 Marines out of 12, and didn't ask what happened. He already knew. El Chupacabra, he said simply. I tried to warn you. They're still out there, Taylor gasped. Still hunting, still, they won't come here. Too close to human settlement, too many lights, too many guns. You're safe now, for what that's worth. 3 Marines out of 12, safe. While 9 of our brothers died in the desert. While 9 good men learned too late that some warnings are literal. Some legends are real. And some creatures have been hunting this desert longer than America has existed. The Chupacabra had let us go. Let 3 survive. Not out of mercy, out of purpose. So we could tell the story, so we could warn others. So the legend would continue. Because fear is what keeps humans out of their territory. And 3 traumatized Marines spreading tales of desert monsters. That was better than any fence. We'd entered their desert, and we'd paid the price. 9 lives, 9 Marines who'd never go home, 9 men who died because we didn't listen, didn't believe, didn't respect the warnings, and somewhere in that desert, the pack was feeding, preparing, waiting for the next group of humans who thought they knew better, who thought training and weapons were enough, who thought folklore was just stories. They weren't stories, they were warnings. And we'd learned that lesson in blood. Gutierrez gave us water, food, medical attention, called the local sheriff. And then we had to explain, had to tell them how 12 Marines entered the desert and only 3 came out. Had to describe what killed 9 men in less than 48 hours. Chupacabra, I said, because lying seemed pointless, because the truth was all we had left. We were attacked by Chupacabra, a pack of them, 10 or more. They hunted us, systematically, tactically. They killed 9 Marines. The sheriff, a man named Rodriguez, no relation, looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Son, I understand you've been through trauma. Desert heat, dehydration. These things can cause hallucinations, but we need to know what really happened. That is what really happened, Taylor said. His voice was flat. Dead. The voice of a man who'd watched his entire team die and couldn't process it yet. We were attacked by cryptids, by creatures that walked upright, that communicated, that coordinated attacks, that used tactics I've only seen from trained soldiers. They're real, and they're still out there. Marines don't die to wildlife, Sheriff Rodriguez said carefully. Even aggressive wildlife. Y'all are trained, armed. You should have been able to handle any animal threat. These weren't animals, Peterson said. Or, if they are, they're unlike any animal on Earth. They're intelligent, organized, adapted to hunting humans, and they're in your desert, in your county, killing people. We haven't had any deaths. Because people listen to the warnings, Gutierrez interrupted. Because the old families know not to go deep into the desert at night. Because we respect El Chupacabra. But these Marines, they didn't know, didn't believe. And now 9 of them are dead. The sheriff looked between us, saw 3 traumatized men. Saw Gutierrez, who'd lived here his whole life and knew things outsiders didn't. And saw a problem he couldn't officially acknowledge. I'll send a search and rescue team at dawn. We'll look for your men, bring them home if we can. But we knew they wouldn't find anything. The Chupacabra didn't leave bodies. They were too smart for that, too careful. They'd take the remains deep into the desert, somewhere no search team would ever look, and 9 Marines would just disappear, listed as missing. Eventually declared dead, but never found, never recovered. The military arrived 12 hours later. A colonel from Fort Bliss, intelligence officers, medical personnel. They separated us, interrogated us individually, tried to find inconsistencies in our stories, tried to figure out what we were hiding. "Walk me through it again," the colonel said to me. Third time asking. Third time hearing the same story. "You're saying you were attacked by cryptids?" "Yes, sir. Chupacabra. A pack of them, bipedal predators, 5 to 6 feet tall, reptilian-mammal hybrid appearance, intelligent, coordinated. They hunted us for 2 days, killed 9 Marines, let 3 of us escape to tell the story." "Why would they let you escape?" "To spread fear. To keep humans out of their territory. Dead men don't tell stories. But 3 survivors talking about desert monsters. That keeps people away. That protects their hunting grounds. That requires a level of intelligence that they have. Sir, I know how this sounds. I know what the official explanation will be. Training accident, heat casualties, maybe cartel activity, something that doesn't include cryptids, but that's the truth. And 9 Marines are dead because we didn't take the folklore seriously, because we thought we knew better." The colonel looked at me for a long moment, then closed his folder. "Staff Sergeant Rivera, you're being placed on medical leave. Psychological evaluation. Treatment for trauma. The official report will state that your unit encountered extreme environmental conditions during desert training, that heat casualties occurred, that some members of your team went missing in the desert and are presumed deceased. Search and rescue operations will continue, but are unlikely to recover remains." That's a cover-up. That's the official record, because what you're describing is impossible. And even if it wasn't impossible, acknowledging it would create panic, would undermine public confidence, would make the Marine Corps look incompetent. We can't have that. So the official story is environmental casualties, training accident, tragic but understandable. And when it happens again, when more Marines train in that desert and get killed, the Texas border region is being removed from approved training areas. Environmental concerns, endangered species habitat. Pick your justification. Point is, no more Marines will be training in South Texas desert, not after this. It was the same pattern as every other cryptid encounter the military encountered. Cover it up. Classify it. Make sure the truth never gets out. Because admitting that things like Chupacabra exist would shatter everything people believe about the world, about what's possible, about what's waiting in the dark corners of America. We were released 2 weeks later. Medical discharge for PTSD, honorable, with full benefits. But our careers were over. 3 Marines who'd survived something impossible and couldn't tell anyone about it without being labeled crazy. Taylor disappeared within 6 months. No goodbye, no forwarding address, just gone. I heard rumors he'd moved to Alaska, as far from deserts as possible, trying to forget, trying to rebuild a life where Chupacabra didn't exist. Peterson reached out to me a year later, asked if I'd come back to Texas, said he needed to talk, needed someone who understood. We met in El Paso, away from the desert, away from the border, away from anything that reminded us of what happened. "I keep thinking about going back," he admitted. "Finding proof, documenting them, making people believe." "Don't," I said. "You go back in that desert, you don't come out. They let us go once, they won't let us go twice. But 9 Marines are dead, and nobody cares. Nobody even believes they died to anything other than heat stroke. Their families deserve to know the truth. The truth will just make it worse. Your son was killed by a cryptid isn't closure. It's nightmare fuel. Let them think it was a training accident. Let them think it was quick and painless. That's better than the reality." Peterson wasn't satisfied. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted justice, wanted acknowledgement, wanted the world to know what killed our brothers. But the world doesn't work that way. The world dismisses what it doesn't understand, buries what it can't explain. and moves on. I moved back to El Paso, close to where I grew up, close to the desert, but not in it. I got a job with Border Patrol, desk job, not field work. Used my military experience and my Spanish. Helped coordinate operations without having to go into the desert myself. And I started collecting stories from ranchers, from old families, from people who'd lived on the border for generations. Stories about Chupacabra sightings, cattle mutilations, missing persons, and I found patterns, consistency, evidence that what we encountered wasn't unique, wasn't new. It had been there for decades, maybe centuries, maybe longer. The border communities knew. They'd always known. They had rules. Don't go deep into the desert at night. Don't camp alone. Don't dismiss the warnings. Follow these rules and the Chupacabra left you alone. Break them and you disappeared. Simple. Effective. Working for generations. But outsiders didn't listen. Didn't believe. And every few years someone else went missing. Hunters. Hikers. Migrants trying to cross illegally. All of them disappearing into the desert. All of them dismissed as heat casualties or cartel violence or just people who got lost. But I knew better. I knew what was really out there. What was really hunting. What was really killing. I tried reporting it. Wrote detailed accounts. Sent them to cryptozoology researchers. To paranormal investigators. To anyone who might take it seriously. Most dismissed it. Called it creative writing. Said I was seeking attention or suffering PTSD delusions. But some believed. Some understood. And slowly, the story spread. Not as official military history, but as warning, as lesson, as proof that some folklore exists for reasons, that some legends are literal, that some creatures are real even when science says they're impossible. My abuela called me one day. Said she'd heard about Marines dying in the desert. Asked if that was me, if I was the survivor. I didn't answer directly, didn't confirm, but she knew. Grandmothers always know. Mijo, she said in Spanish, I tried to warn you. When you were young, when you joined the military, I told you about El Chupacabra, about respecting the old stories, about not going where you don't belong. I remember, abuela. I just didn't believe. And now? Now I believe. Now I understand. Now I'm trying to make sure others don't make the same mistake. Good, because the desert is old. Older than cities. Older than countries. And what lives there was here before us, and will be here after us. We don't own the desert. We just visit. And if we're respectful, if we follow the rules, we can visit safely. But if we're arrogant, if we think we're in control, the desert teaches us otherwise. You learned that lesson. Make sure others learn it without dying. I've been doing that for 4 years now, giving talks, writing articles, sharing the story whenever anyone will listen. Most people dismiss it. But some take it seriously. Some understand. Some Marines, some Border Patrol agents, some local law enforcement, people who might end up in that desert, they listen. They learn. And maybe, just maybe, they'll survive because of it. The military still denies everything. The official story hasn't changed. Training accident, environmental casualties. Nothing about Chupacabra. Nothing about cryptids. Nothing that would force them to admit they sent Marines into a desert where things hunt humans. Where things have been hunting humans for longer than America has existed. But the border communities know. They've always known. And they're careful. They follow the rules. They respect El Chupacabra. And mostly they survive. I drive past that desert sometimes. On my way to visit family. On my way to work. And I look out at the endless scrubland. The arroyos, the rocks. The terrain where 9 Marines died. where 9 men learned too late that folklore isn't fiction, that warnings aren't superstition, that some creatures are real even when you don't believe in them. And sometimes, at night, when I'm driving those empty desert roads, I see them in my headlights, standing by the roadside, watching, those same red eyes, that same reptilian mammal form, reminding me that they're still there, still hunting, still protecting their territory. But they don't approach, don't threaten, just watch. Because I know the rules now. I respect the desert, I acknowledge their presence, and as long as I stay on the road, stay in human territory, stay respectful, they leave me alone. That's the deal. That's how you survive. You don't challenge them. Don't trespass. Don't dismiss the warnings. You respect their space, and they respect yours. 9 Marines didn't understand that, didn't believe it, and they paid the price. Paid with their lives because we thought military training was enough, thought weapons and tactics were enough, thought we were apex predators who could go anywhere, do anything, survive everything. We were wrong. The desert taught us we were wrong. And the Chupacabra made sure we'd never forget. I still think about them sometimes, about Anderson, Davis, Williams, Miller, Peterson, Johnson, Washington, Chen, Martinez. 9 men I served with, 9 brothers I couldn't save, 9 Marines who died in a desert that should have been safe. That would have been safe if we'd just listened, if we'd just believed, if we'd just respected the warnings. Their families were told they died in a training accident, that it was quick, that they didn't suffer. But I know the truth. I know how they died. I know what killed them. And I know it wasn't quick or painless. It was terror and agony and the realization, too late, that the stories were real, that the warnings were literal, that the Chupacabra weren't myth, weren't legend, weren't folklore. They were predators, perfectly adapted to their environment, perfectly evolved for hunting, and perfectly capable of killing trained Marines who thought they knew better. I carry 9 names with me, 9 men who trusted their training, who trusted their weapons, who trusted that folklore was just stories told by simple people who didn't understand the modern world, who trusted wrong. The Chupacabra are still out there, in the Texas desert, in the border region, hunting, feeding, protecting their territory. They've been there for generations. They'll be there for generations more, because they're adapted, they're intelligent, they're survivors. And as long as humans keep thinking they're myth, keep dismissing the warnings, keep trespassing in desert that isn't theirs, the Chupacabra will keep hunting, keep killing, keep proving that some legends are real. 12 Marines entered the desert. 3 came out, and 9 families were told their sons died in a training accident. A lie that protects the government. A lie that protects the truth. A lie that keeps people from panicking about what's really out there in the American Southwest. But it's not a lie to me. It's not a lie to Peterson or Taylor. We know, we saw, we survived, and we'll spend the rest of our lives remembering, warning, trying to make sure the next group of Marines doesn't make the same mistake. Don't go into the deep desert at night. Don't dismiss the folklore. Don't think you're safe just because you're armed and trained. And for God's sake, listen to the old families. Listen to the ranchers. Listen to people like Hector Gutierrez who tried to warn us, who tried to save us, who knew the truth that we wouldn't believe until it was too late. The Chupacabra are real. The desert is theirs. And if you trespass, if you ignore the warnings, if you think you know better than generations of people who've lived with these things, you'll learn. You'll understand. You'll die. Just like 9 Marines did. Just like countless others before us. Just like whoever comes next and doesn't listen. The desert doesn't forgive. The Chupacabra don't forget. And the warnings are real. Always have been. Always will be. I hope you're listening. I hope you believe. I hope you respect the desert and the things that live there. Because if you don't, if you ignore this warning like we ignored Gutierrez's warning, your family will be told you died in an accident, and 3 survivors will carry your name forever, along with all the others who learned too late that folklore is warning disguised as story, and that some creatures are real even when the government says they're not. 5 years. That's how long it's been since 12 Marines entered the Texas desert and only 3 came out. 5 years of living with memories. 5 years of nightmares. 5 years of trying to warn people who don't want to listen. My name is still Staff Sergeant Marcus Rivera. I'm 34 now. Work for Border Patrol in El Paso. Desk job. Coordination. Intelligence analysis. Anything that keeps me from having to go back into that desert. Anything that keeps me from having to face those red eyes again. But the desert is always there, right outside the city, right beyond the border. Endless miles of scrubland and rock and heat, where things hunt that shouldn't exist. Where things kill that science can't explain. Where 9 Marines died and were never found. Never recovered, never acknowledged. The official story hasn't changed. Training accident, environmental casualties, tragic but understandable. The Marine Corps never admitted what really happened, never will admit it, because admitting that cryptids killed 9 trained Marines would shatter too many comfortable assumptions, would raise too many uncomfortable questions, would force people to confront the possibility that America's wilderness still holds secrets, still holds dangers, still holds things that hunt humans. Taylor is dead. Suicide. 2 years after the incident. Couldn't live with the memories. Couldn't reconcile what he saw with what the world told him was possible. Couldn't handle being dismissed as crazy or delusional when he tried to tell the truth. So he ended it. Another casualty of that desert. Just delayed. Peterson contacted me last month. First time in 3 years. Said he needed to talk, said he'd been doing research, said he'd found something important. We met in El Paso, at a bar far from the border, far from the desert, far from anything that reminded us of what we'd lost. I've been mapping the sightings, he said, spreading papers across the table. Chupacabra encounters, cattle mutilations, missing persons, going back 50 years, and there's a pattern. They're not random, they're territorial markers. They're showing us their boundaries, telling us where not to go. I looked at the maps, saw the clusters, saw the consistency, saw proof that what we'd encountered wasn't unique, wasn't isolated. It was systematic, organized. Evidence of a species that had been living in the American Southwest for generations, maybe longer, maybe forever. How many dead? I asked. How many people have they killed over the years? Hundreds, maybe thousands. But most are never reported as Chupacabra attacks. They're heat deaths, lost hikers, cartel violence. Anything but the truth. Because the truth is too uncomfortable, too frightening, too impossible. So, what are you going to do with this information? I'm going to publish it, make it public. Force people to acknowledge what's out there. Force the government to admit what they've been covering up for decades. They'll destroy you, discredit you, make you look crazy. Everything you've experienced, everything you survived, they'll turn it into delusion, trauma, fiction. Maybe, but maybe some people will listen. Maybe some people will believe. Maybe some people will stay out of that desert because of what I publish. And if that saves even one life, it's worth it. I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him it was pointless, that nobody would believe, that he'd just ruin what was left of his life for nothing. But I couldn't, because he was right. If even one person took the warning seriously, If even one person survived because of the information, it was worth it. Peterson published his research 3 weeks ago, posted it online, sent it to cryptozoology journals, distributed it to border communities, comprehensive documentation of Chupacabra activity in South Texas, maps, timelines, witness testimonies, evidence that something was out there, something dangerous, something that killed. The response was mixed. Some people believed, some people dismissed it. The military ignored it. The media called it an elaborate hoax. But in the border communities, in the ranching families, in the old Hispanic populations who'd lived with El Chupacabra for generations, there was recognition. Validation. Finally, someone from outside was acknowledging what they'd always known. I contributed to Peterson's research, added my testimony, my observations, my warnings, used my position with Border Patrol to share information with agents who worked the desert, who encountered things they couldn't explain, who found bodies that didn't make sense, who heard stories from migrants who'd survived encounters with creatures that shouldn't exist. And slowly, carefully, the truth is spreading. Not as official policy, not as government acknowledgement, but as grassroots awareness, as community knowledge, as warnings passed from person to person. Stay out of the deep desert. Don't travel alone at night. Listen to the locals. Respect the folklore. Follow the rules. My abuela died last year. 92 years old. Lived her entire life on the Texas-Mexico border. Knew the desert, knew the dangers, knew the truth about El Chupacabra. On her deathbed, she made me promise to keep warning people. Keep sharing the stories. Keep making sure the next generation understood. The Chupacabra aren't evil, she said in Spanish, her voice weak but certain. They're just protecting their home. They were here first, long before we came. Long before cities and roads and borders. This is their land. We're the intruders. And if we respect that, if we acknowledge their claim, we can coexist. But if we're arrogant, if we think the desert belongs to us, they'll remind us we're wrong. They'll kill us, not out of malice, out of defense, out of survival. That's not evil, that's nature. She was right. The Chupacabra weren't monsters. They were predators, perfectly adapted to their environment, perfectly suited for hunting. And humans, especially humans who didn't believe in them, didn't respect them, didn't follow the rules, were prey. Easy prey, arrogant prey, prey that thought training and weapons made them safe. We weren't safe. 9 Marines proved that. 12 highly trained men with the best equipment in the world, and 9 of them died in less than 48 hours. Because training doesn't matter when you're facing something that's been hunting that terrain for centuries. Because weapons don't matter when the enemy moves faster than you can aim. Because confidence doesn't matter when you're dying of thirst and the things hunting you don't need water. I give talks now, at military bases, at Border Patrol training centers, at community colleges, anywhere people will listen. I tell the story, the real story, not the official version, the truth, about 12 Marines, about a desert, about creatures that shouldn't exist but do, about 9 men who died and were never found, about warnings ignored and consequences paid. Some people believe me. Some people think I'm crazy. Some people think I'm running a grift or seeking attention or suffering from untreated PTSD. But I don't care about the skeptics. I care about the people who might end up in that desert, who might face what we faced, who might die if they don't take the warnings seriously. The military still won't acknowledge it, still maintains the training accident story, still classifies South Texas desert as off-limits for environmental reasons. But they know. The officers who read Peterson's research know. The intelligence analysts who've seen the patterns know. They know something's out there. They just can't officially admit it, can't risk the panic, can't risk the questions. So they stay silent, and more people die. In that desert, in those arroyos, in territory that belongs to the Chupacabra. I drive past that desert every day, on my way to work, on my way home, and I remember the heat, remember the thirst, remember watching Marines die, remember running while my brothers screamed behind me, remember reaching safety while 9 men stayed in that desert forever. And sometimes, at night, when I'm alone, I see them. Not the Chupacabra, the Marines, Anderson, Davis, Williams, Miller, Peterson, Johnson, Washington, Chen, Martinez standing in my bedroom, staring at me, asking why I survived when they didn't, asking why I didn't save them, asking why I didn't do more. I don't have answers, just guilt, just memories, just the knowledge that I'm alive because the Chupacabra let me live, because they wanted survivors, because dead men don't spread warnings but traumatized survivors do. I'm alive because I serve their purpose, because my fear, my testimony, my warnings, they keep people out of the desert. They protect Chupacabra territory. They ensure the pack continues to hunt undisturbed. I'm not a survivor. I'm a messenger, a tool, a warning system that the Chupacabra use to mark their boundaries. This far and no farther. Enter our desert and die. That's the message. That's what 9 Marines died to teach. That's what I'm condemned to repeat for the rest of my life. Peterson called me yesterday, said he's going back, going into the desert, going to find proof, physical evidence, something undeniable. Bodies, remains, anything that would force the government to acknowledge what's out there. I begged him not to, told him he'd die, told him the Chupacabra don't leave evidence, told him they're too smart, too careful, too experienced at hiding their existence. But he's determined. He says 9 Marines deserve more than being forgotten, deserve more than being statistics in a training accident report, deserve the truth. He's right, but he's also going to die. I know it. He knows it. The Chupacabra let us go once, they won't let us go twice. If he goes back into that desert, if he tries to expose them, they'll kill him. And there won't be any escape, any rescue, any survival, just another body that's never found, another missing person that's never explained, another name I'll carry for the rest of my life. But I understand why he's going, because living with this knowledge, living with these memories, living with the guilt of survival while better men died, it's torture. It's slow death. Maybe facing the Chupacabra again, maybe dying in that desert, maybe joining our brothers. Maybe that's better than living, better than remembering, better than carrying this weight. I won't go with him. I'm not ready to die, not ready to face them again, not ready to return to that desert. But I'll honor his memory when he disappears, because he will disappear. I'll tell his story. Add his name to the list. Make sure people know he died trying to prove the truth, trying to save future lives, trying to make 9 dead Marines mean something more than just training accident. The Texas desert is still there. The Chupacabra are still there. Hunting, feeding, protecting their territory. They've been there longer than human civilization. They'll be there long after we're gone, because they're adapted. They're survivors. They're perfect for that environment. And humans, for all our technology, all our weapons, all our confidence, we're just meat, just prey, just food for something that understands that desert in ways we never will. 12 Marines learned that lesson. 9 died learning it. 3 survived to tell it. And soon, there might only be 2 of us left. 2 survivors, 2 warnings, 2 broken men trying to make sure others don't make the same mistakes. Don't go into the deep desert. Don't travel alone. Don't dismiss the folklore. Don't think you're safe because you're armed. Don't ignore the warnings. Don't be arrogant. Don't assume the desert belongs to you. It doesn't. It belongs to them, to the Chupacabra, to creatures that were there first and will be there last. Listen to the old families. Listen to the ranchers. Listen to people like Hector Gutierrez who tried to warn us, who tried to save us, who knew the truth we wouldn't accept until 9 men paid the price for our ignorance. The Chupacabra aren't evil. They're not monsters. They're predators defending their territory. And if you respect that, if you follow the rules, you can survive. But if you don't, if you ignore the warnings like we did, you'll die. In that desert, under that sun, while things that shouldn't exist but do drain the life from your body, and nobody will find you. Nobody will save you. Nobody will even know what killed you. Just like nobody knows what really killed 9 Marines in September 2021. Just like nobody will know what killed Peterson when he goes back. Just like nobody will know what kills the next person who dismisses the warnings, who thinks folklore is fiction, who thinks the desert is safe. It's not safe. It never was. It never will be. Because the Chupacabra are real. They're there. They're hunting. And they don't forgive trespassing. They don't forgive arrogance. They don't forgive humans who think they're in control. We're not in control. The desert is. And the desert has teeth and claws and red eyes that glow in the dark. And 9 Marines learned that too late. 9 good men who died because we didn't listen, didn't believe, didn't respect the warnings. Don't be the next one. Don't be the next name I carry. Don't be the next person who dismisses folklore as superstition. Because in South Texas, in the border desert, in the territory the Chupacabra claim, folklore is truth. Warnings are literal. And death is real. 12 Marines entered the desert. 3 came out. And somewhere in those endless miles of scrubland and rock and heat, 9 bodies lie that will never be found. 9 men who became part of the desert, part of the legend, part of the warning. Listen to the warning. Respect the desert. Follow the rules. And maybe, just maybe, you'll survive. Maybe you'll be smarter than we were. Maybe you'll believe what we couldn't believe until it was too late. Maybe you'll live where 9 Marines died. Or maybe you'll join them. Join us. Join the list of people who learned the truth the hard way. Who paid the price for ignorance. Who died in a desert that doesn't belong to humans. That never did. That never will. The choice is yours. The warning is clear. The Chupacabra are waiting. And the desert doesn't forgive.